Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his private journal words he never intended for the world to read. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He was a Roman emperor. He commanded armies. He held the fate of millions in his hands. And yet, the most honest battles he ever recorded were the ones fought inside himself. Against pride, against neediness, against the desperate urge to be seen as more than he was. What does a Roman emperor have to do with dating and relationships? Everything, because the mistakes men make with women are rarely about strategy. They are not about the right words to say, or the right place to take her, or the right outfit to wear. The mistakes men make with women are almost always about character, about self-concept, about the quiet stories a man tells himself when no one else is listening. This audiobook is not a manipulation manual. It is not a list of tricks. It is something older and more useful than that. It is a mirror. The 9 mistakes we are going to walk through today are patterns. They are patterns that quietly push away the very connection men are searching for. And the reason smart men avoid them is not because smart men read a script. It is because smart men have done the inner work to understand themselves. They have learned, often through painful experience, what genuinely attracts a high-quality woman, and more importantly, what silently repels her. So take a breath. This is for the man who wants to do it right, not because someone told him to, but because he respects himself enough to grow. Let us begin. Mistake number 1. Seeking approval instead of offering presents. There is a particular kind of anxiety that lives in the chest of a man who needs to be liked. He laughs a little too hard at things that are not funny. He agrees with opinions he does not hold. He monitors her face constantly, adjusting himself like a mirror, trying to reflect whatever she wants to see. Women feel this, not intellectually. They feel it in their nervous system. Something just feels off, and most of the time they cannot even explain why. The Stoics called this the trap of external validation. Epictetus, who was once a slave and became one of the greatest philosophers in history, said this: "Never depend on the admiration of others. There is no strength in it." A man who is constantly seeking approval is communicating one thing louder than any words. I do not fully believe in my own value. I need you to confirm it for me. That is not attractive. That is a weight. And no woman of substance wants to carry that weight. The alternative is not arrogance. Arrogance is also a form of insecurity. It is the man who compensates for not believing in himself by performing confidence loudly. The alternative is presence. A man who is genuinely present is not monitoring her reactions. He is not performing. He is simply here, curious, grounded, unshaken. He has his own opinions. He disagrees when he disagrees. He laughs when something is actually funny. He is the same man alone as he is with her. That kind of man is rare, and rarity is magnetic. Mistake number 2. moving too fast because of fear. This one is counterintuitive. Most people assume that a man who moves too fast is overconfident. In reality, men almost always rush because they are afraid. Afraid she will lose interest. Afraid the window will close. Afraid that if he does not lock this down quickly, some other man will come along and she will be gone. That fear communicates scarcity. It communicates that he does not believe he is someone worth waiting for. Think about it from a different angle. A man who is at peace with himself, who knows his own value, who genuinely enjoys life, whether or not this particular woman chooses him, that man has no reason to rush. He can let things unfold naturally. He can enjoy the process. He is not white-knuckling the steering wheel, hoping she does not leave. That ease is extraordinarily rare, and women feel it. The Stoic principle here is the practice of not attaching your well-being to outcomes you cannot control. Seneca wrote, "If you want to make a man happy, add not to his possessions, but take away from his desires." When a man stops desperately needing the relationship to work out in a specific way, on a specific timeline, he becomes the most relaxed and attractive version of himself. Ironically, slowing down is what makes things actually move forward. Mistake number 3. Treating her like she is the prize. Now, before you misunderstand this, let us be precise. A good woman is wonderful. She is worth admiring. She is worth pursuing with genuine intention. She deserves to be treated with respect and care and attention. But the moment a man places a woman so high on a pedestal that he loses sight of his own worth, something goes wrong. You have seen this before. The man who cancels his plans for her every time. The man who has no opinion on where to eat because whatever she wants is fine. The man who showers her with compliments and gifts in the first week, not because he is generous, but because he is trying to secure her interest through investment. This behavior creates an imbalance. An imbalance creates instability. Here is what happens emotionally in a woman's mind when a man pedestalizes her. At first, it might feel flattering, but very quickly, it starts to feel uncomfortable. She begins to wonder if he actually knows her, or if he is in love with an idea of her. She wonders if he has anything going on in his own life. She wonders why someone who seems so capable would be so eager to abandon himself for her. And then, almost always, her attraction fades. The man who avoids this mistake is not cold or withholding. He genuinely likes her and shows it. But he also has his own life, his own standards, and his own sense of self that does not disappear when she walks into the room. He is warm and present, but he is not a doormat. He is a partner, not a worshiper. Mistake number 4. Communicating through hints instead of honesty. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." So many men communicate sideways. They hint at what they want instead of saying it. They get passive-aggressive when they are hurt instead of naming what happened. They go quiet when they are upset and wait for her to figure out why. They agree to things they resent and then build quiet resentment over time. This is not just unattractive. It is genuinely corrosive to any real connection. Women are extraordinarily perceptive. The indirect communication of a man who cannot speak his truth is not invisible to her. She picks up on the tension. She senses the suppressed emotion, and it makes her feel unsafe. Not because he is a danger to her physically, but because she cannot trust that she knows what is actually going on with him. She cannot relax into the relationship because the ground beneath it does not feel solid. A man who says what he means, calmly and clearly, even when it is uncomfortable, communicates something deeply powerful. It says, "I respect you enough to be honest with you. I respect myself enough to have needs and voice them. You do not have to read my mind because I will tell you what is real." That kind of man creates safety, and safety is the foundation of genuine intimacy. Honest communication is not about being blunt or unkind. It is about saying the true thing in a way that honors both yourself and her. It takes practice, but the men who master it find that their relationships become exponentially more real and more lasting. Mistake number 5. Abandoning his standards to keep the peace. There is a version of flexibility that is wisdom. A man who can adapt, compromise, and consider another person's perspective is emotionally mature and easy to build a life with. And then there is a version of flexibility that is self-abandonment. The man who abandons his own standards to keep the peace is not being kind. He is being afraid. He is afraid of conflict, afraid of her disapproval, afraid that if he holds a line, she will walk away. So he folds. Every time. The tragedy is not just that this erodes his own self-respect over time. The tragedy is that it also erodes her respect for him. Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." But here is the thing about standards. A man who has genuine standards is communicating that he knows what he values. He knows who he is. He is not infinitely shapeable by whoever is in the room with him. That is not rigidity. That is integrity. And integrity is one of the most attractive things a man can possess. Not because it is impressive on paper, but because a woman with her own sense of self wants to be with a man who has his. She does not want someone she can fully mold to her preferences. That is not a partner. That is a reflection. She wants someone who will occasionally push back, who has opinions, who will not always do what she wants, and therefore, when he chooses her, that choice actually means something. Mistake number 6. Using humor or sarcasm to hide vulnerability. Laughter is one of the great joys of human connection. A man who can make a woman genuinely laugh is doing something sacred. Shared humor creates bonds that are almost impossible to describe. But there is a particular way that some men use humor as armor. They deflect every sincere moment with a joke. They turn every emotionally honest exchange into a bit. They are funny when she asks something real, because the real answer feels too exposed. A woman who cares about you will try, multiple times, to reach you in a genuine way. And if every time she tries, she hits a wall of jokes, she will eventually stop trying. Not because she is giving up on you, but because she will conclude, perhaps correctly, that you are not available in the way she needs. Vulnerability is not weakness. The Stoics were extraordinarily disciplined and strong men, and yet what made their writings so enduring was their honesty about their own inner struggles. Marcus Aurelius did not write about his private battles to appear weak. He wrote about them because he was secure enough to acknowledge that he was human. A man who can say, sincerely and without drama, that something matters to him, that he is uncertain about something, that he cares about her, and it means something. That man is not fragile. That man is strong enough not to need the armor. That is genuinely rare, and women recognize it. Mistake number 7. Letting insecurity become jealousy or control. This one tends to escalate quietly. It rarely begins as control. It begins as caring, as attention, as wanting to be close. But underneath, some expressions of jealousy and possessiveness is not love. It is fear. The fear that she will find someone better. The fear that he is not enough. The fear that her freedom, her friendships, her independent life are threats to him. A woman who is with a man like this feels it gradually tighten around her. She begins to feel monitored rather than cherished. She begins to feel that her life is something she has to hide or defend rather than share. And the profound irony is this: the insecurity that drives controlling behavior is the very thing that makes the outcome more likely. Because the most certain way to push a high-quality woman away is to make her feel small, Seneca wrote. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. A man who is secure in himself does not need to control. He has built a life he is proud of. He trusts in his own value. He is not perfect, but he knows who he is. When he is with her, he is genuinely glad she is there. And when she is living her own life, he is genuinely glad she has won. That security, real security, not performed confidence, but the quiet knowledge that he is enough, is the most powerful form of attraction that exists. Because it is the one thing that cannot be faked indefinitely. She will find out who he really is, and a man who has done the work to actually be secure has nothing to hide. Mistake number 8. Making her responsible for his emotional state. This is perhaps the most common mistake, and also the one that does the most long-term damage to a relationship. It shows up in subtle ways at first. He is in a bad mood, and it is quietly her job to fix it. He has a bad day, and he comes home, and the emotional weather of the entire evening depends on her ability to manage him. He is upset, and instead of taking responsibility for that, he disperses it into the shared space of the relationship and waits for her to clean it up. Over time, a woman in this dynamic begins to feel like an emotional caretaker. She walks on eggshells. She monitors his mood before she speaks. She shapes her behavior around managing his emotional experience. That is not partnership. That is a burden. A man who has done the work knows how to regulate himself. He knows how to feel something difficult without externalizing it destructively. He knows how to say, "I am going through something right now," without making that her emergency to solve. He takes responsibility for his inner world. This does not mean he never shares his struggles. Healthy relationships involve sharing difficulty. But there is a difference between sharing something honestly and outsourcing your emotional regulation to someone else. The man who has this handled is the man a woman can actually relax with. She does not have to be his therapist. She does not have to be his mother. She gets to be his partner, and that changes everything about how she feels in the relationship. Mistake number 9. Stopping his own growth after he has her. Here is the final mistake, and in many ways, the most quietly devastating one. There is a version of the story that many men live without realizing it. They work on themselves when they are single. They go to the gym. They build their career. They improve their social life. They work on their confidence and their purpose, and then they get the girl. And slowly, without noticing it, they coast. The ambition that attracted her begins to fade. The discipline softens. The growth stops. And what she fell for, the man who was becoming something, who had energy and direction and hunger, begins to disappear. She did not fall in love with a finished product. She fell in love with a man in motion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Growth is not a season of life. It is not something you do to attract a partner and then set down once you have secured one. Growth is a way of being. It is an orientation toward life. It is the commitment to becoming a better version of yourself, not for anyone else, but because you respect your own potential too much to leave it unrealized. A man who keeps growing, who keeps building, who keeps challenging himself, who wakes up 10 years into a relationship, still curious about the world and about himself, that man remains attractive. Not just physically, in the deepest sense of the word. He remains interesting. He remains someone she chooses, consciously, every day. Not just someone she stayed with, because leaving was too difficult. And perhaps, more importantly, he remains someone he is proud to be. Closing words. We have covered 9 mistakes. But if you listen carefully, they are all pointing at the same thing. The man who makes these mistakes is, at the root of it, a man who does not yet fully know himself, or trust himself, or believe in himself. He is looking to the relationship to give him something he has not yet built inside. And the man who avoids these mistakes is not some mythic perfect human. He is simply a man who has decided to do the work, to know his values, to speak his truth, to regulate himself, to keep growing, to be present, to offer substance rather than performance. Epictetus said, Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. You cannot control whether she chooses you. You cannot control chemistry, timing, or circumstance, but you can control who you are becoming. You can control whether you show up as a whole person or a hollow one. You can control whether you bring depth to the table or desperation. And here is what the greatest men throughout history seem to have understood. The ones who built empires wrote philosophies that lasted millennia, and also loved deeply and were loved back. Character is the only real foundation. Everything else, the looks, the money, the words, the tactics, they are all temporary. They work until they do not. But a man of genuine character, a man who is honest and grounded and growing and present, that man creates something that lasts, not just in relationships, in everything. So let the 9 mistakes serve not as a checklist of things to avoid, but as a map toward something better, toward a version of yourself that you are proud of, that does not need approval, that does not rush from fear, that does not control from insecurity, that speaks honestly, holds standards, stays open, and never stops growing. That is the man worth becoming, and that is the man she will be glad she found.